Okay, deep breath. I don't know why I'm posting this, maybe because there's no one left to read it, maybe because if I don't write it down, I'll go completely insane, or maybe I already am, and this is just one last neural misfire before the silence takes over. Whatever, I'm the reason Earth is gone, not like, the reason in the way you're thinking. I didn't push a button or drop a bomb or betray a code or anything neat like that. There's no villain monologue coming, I didn't even know what I was doing when it started. I was just there, and they picked me, and I didn't stop it. I didn't save anyone, I was the one they didn't kill. You ever think about that? How horrifying it is to be spared. Everyone else is ash and melted bone or God knows what in a vacuum now, and I'm still breathing, still thinking, still remembering, and no one's coming for me, no one's left to come for me. They made sure of that. I've replayed it a million times in my head, what I could have said differently, when I should have run, when I should have stayed, when I should have shut the fuck up and not answered that signal. I was a linguist, not a soldier, not a commander, not some messiah figure, just a guy who was decent at pattern recognition and had a clean enough psych profile to get shipped off to the first contact diplomatic crew like it was some stupid prize for being boring and well-behaved, and then they showed up, not with flags or signals or slow approaches or curiosity. No, they just appeared above Titan Station and opened fire, no warning, no talking, just that awful blue ripple that turned a city dome into boiling dust. They didn't come to talk, they came to erase, and I was still standing. When it was over, I still don't know why, not really, not fully, but I think it's because of what I said, or maybe because of what I am, and that's the part that really keeps me up, because I don't even know who the fuck that is anymore. But the worst part. They whispered something to me. Right after they killed the others, right after I thought I was next, right after the static in my earphones started to hum like my mother's old tapes, they leaned in, and in a voice that sounded like rust and thunder and something ancient clawing out of the dark, they said, "The echo survives," and then they left, they just left, and that's when I knew something was very, very wrong, because they recognized me, and I didn't even recognize myself. But I should've, God, I should've, I wasn't even the best. God, that's the part one can't stop coming back to. I wasn't even the best translator, I wasn't some genius cryptographer or codebreaker or polyglot wunderkind or whatever the hell they thought they needed out there. I was just the one with the least complications, no disciplinary flags, no political affiliations, no close family, no psychiatric history worth flagging, just clean, empty, quiet. They picked me because I was easy to move around, not because I was good, and I said yes. Of course I said yes. You don't say no when EarthGov taps your shoulder and tells you your name's been shortlisted for the Diplomatic Integration Corps. I mean, that name alone sounded like it came out of a PR committee's ass, but it came with a clearance chip and a full salary and a ride on the Alethea, which, I googled this at the time, because I'm pretentious like that, means truth in ancient Greek. So yeah, funny, the truth, right. Back then I thought it was gonna be about decoding signals, maybe reconstructing proto-language from scattered xenodata, stuff that sounded cool on paper and harmless in practice, and then I'd go home, maybe teach, maybe publish, maybe, I don't know, live, but they didn't want a thinker, they wanted a vessel, and I let them fill me up with their bullshit. I remember the first briefing, this shiny silver room with no windows, just these fake-ass screens showing stars that weren't even real, just loops pulled from archived telescope feeds. Some major I've never heard of says, "You're being assigned to a high-priority contact vessel, congratulations, congratulations," like I'd won something, and I remember thinking, like an actual thought I had, word for word, maybe this will make Mom proud, except she was dead, and mute, and would have hated all of it. Fuck, sorry, I'm rambling. I wasn't supposed to matter. I wasn't supposed to be in the room where the world ended, I wasn't even supposed to hear the things I ended up hearing. My whole job was pattern analysis, compare syntax, isolate linguistic roots, recommend phonetic bridges, that kind of crap, literal paperwork. I was a glorified spellcheck for alien sound, and somehow that made me the perfect candidate for extinction duty. I used to joke that I was the quiet one in the corner with the weird coffee order and a thing for forgotten alphabets. No one laughed. No one told me I was about to be history's last fucking polyglot. They just nodded and handed me the tablet. I should have walked away, but I didn't. The first thing I remember about Titan is the sound, which is stupid because technically Titan doesn't have sound, not the way Earth does, not the way air carries it, but I swear to God, when it happened, when the sky cracked open, I heard it, this low, humming, like a cello dragging across a metal plate, slow and mean and wrong. It rattled through the hull before we even saw them. We were in orbit, Alethea, a few dozen of us, scientists. Diplomats, me, a glorified intern with clearance tags. There wasn't supposed to be anything there, no ships, no signals, no movement, just the Titan colony down below and a schedule. We were hours early, and I remember thinking, wow, I might actually get some sleep for once, and then they just arrived. No wake, no warning, no chatter, nothing on comms, just Vesari signature, right on top of us. Like they'd been there the whole time, cloaked in something our sensors couldn't touch. Just waiting for the moment we'd feel safe, and then the pulse, one beam, bright blue, like liquid glass. It didn't slice or burn, it undid, that's the only word I have for it, like someone erased Titan's northern dome with a fucking cosmic rubber. 60,000 people, gone, not dead, not screaming, not even time to scream, just static. I remember the comms tech next to me puking into his sleeve, the captain saying, is that a warning shot? And someone else, maybe me, maybe not, muttering, that was the shot. We didn't fire back. What the hell were we supposed to fire at? They were still just hovering there, no movement, no message, no weapons warning. They only fired once. That's the part people don't get. It wasn't a battle, there were no tactics, no orders. They just corrected us, like we were an error on a page, and I sat there, gripping my translator pad, waiting for a phrase, a frequency, anything. I thought maybe this was a test, a miscommunication. Like maybe they'd heard something wrong from our last probe attempt, maybe I could still help, maybe I could still translate, but there was nothing to translate. Their silence was the message, and I was the only idiot still trying to decode it. God, I thought I was there to help broker peace. I thought maybe I'd get to write history. I did, just not the version where anybody lives. I don't even know if I found it, really. Maybe it found me. It was after the blast, hours later, maybe more. Time gets weird when your brain's been kicked sideways by mass death and silence. The Vesari ship had vanished as fast as it appeared. No chase, no threat, no goodbye, just one pulse and gone. We were on Titan's surface trying to recover anything, debris, data cores, black boxes, body parts. If they left any, mostly it was just heat-scored rock and shadows burned into walls. And then I saw it. Or maybe I felt it first. I was walking through what used to be a residential ring. There were melted stairways. Chunks of carbonized plastic still glowing from the heat, but it was quiet, like the kind of quiet that pushes in behind your ears and makes you feel like you're underwater. And then, this hum, low and deep and pulsing, like a heartbeat but wrong, slower, older, not mine. I turned toward it and there it was, a sphere, about the size of a helmet, hovering maybe half a foot off the ground, smooth, matte black, no reflection, no seams. It didn't glow or spin or do any sci-fi bullshit, it just was. And the hum was coming from inside it, and, God, I walked toward it, like a dumb, curious kid poking a jellyfish on the beach even after your mom said not to. I don't even remember drawing my weapon. I think part of me already knew it wasn't going to hurt me, or maybe I just didn't care. When I got close, the hum shifted, not louder, but sharper, like it knew, like it had just recognized me. Like I had just triggered something it had been waiting to remember. I reached out. I didn't mean to. I swear to God, I didn't mean to touch it, but my hand moved like it wasn't mine, like something in my bones was answering a call my brain hadn't heard yet, and the second my fingers grazed it, I saw something. Not a vision, not a dream, it wasn't visual, it was like language, but not in words. It felt like words. Like whole civilizations poured through my nerves in a second and left nothing behind but heat and grief and something close to recognition, and then it dropped, just fell, like dead. Wait, the hum stopped. I picked it up, and it was warm, not threatening, not deadly, just warm. I brought it back to the lab like a lunatic holding a goddamn miracle. Everyone else was scanning blast craters and I was cradling this humming egg like it might whisper secrets if I held it long enough, and it did, not with sound, not with light, with memory. It didn't talk, it remembered, and somehow, it remembered me. Before the fire, there was music, not real music, not melodies or Songs. Not the kind with choruses or lyrics or structure, it was just static, that soft, hissing, broken signal kind of sound, and she used to sit with it for hours. My mom, I used to think she was just weird. You know how some kids grow up thinking their parents are eccentric in a fun, mysterious way. Not me, I thought she was broken. She was mute, not from birth. Something neurological happened after she had me, stroke maybe, or trauma, or both. She never wrote it down, never told me why. She just stopped speaking, but she'd sit in her little chair, legs tucked under her like a kid, in that dim apartment with the blinds always closed and the walls covered in old antenna wire and signal boosters. And she'd turn the dials of that ancient radio receiver she built herself, built, like soldered with her hands, and just sit there, listening, to nothing, static. She called it the whispers, would sign it, actually, whispers, that was the word, and she'd get this look on her face when she was tuned in, like she was hearing something the rest of us didn't have the bandwidth for. I remember coming home from school one day, I must have been 12, and she had tears running down her face, just silently crying, staring into the glow of a little frequency reader, as if the numbers meant something. I asked her what she was listening to. She just reached out, put the headphones on my head, and it was just static, just noise, but it wasn't. I don't know how to explain it. There was a rhythm underneath, like breathing, like something asleep, and she was smiling through the tears. I remember thinking she was crazy, and then I remember thinking maybe I was, too. She used to write things in her notebooks. Symbols I didn't recognize, spirals and dots and these looping curves that looked like cursive fed through a blender. I found one of them after she died, buried in a box in the closet. I was going to throw it out but something stopped me. I kept it, it's still in my pack, and later. Much later, when I started decoding the Vesari syntax, I realized something. Some of the markings match, not perfectly, but close enough to ruin me. She was always listening, and maybe I should have listened, too. I think they said my name. I didn't understand the rest of it, not really, not the whole sentence, if that's what it was, but one part sounded close, off by a syllable, echoed wrong in my chest instead of my ears, like it was my name, but before humans had words for names. It was right after Europa fell. God, I can barely even think about Europa. We barely stabilized the site, the refugees, the recon labs, the underground vaults. We thought maybe it was safe enough, just for a while, thought maybe they'd moved on, maybe they weren't interested in cleanup, thought maybe the Vesari had said what they came to say over Titan and left the rest of us to panic ourselves into extinction. And then the ice cracked, no warning, again, no radar pings, just this unnatural stillness that hit me like a migraine, like the kind that buzzes behind your teeth before the pain even starts, and then screaming, and then nothing. I ran. I don't even remember making the decision. I just remember sprinting through that frozen corridor, dodging debris and red lights and the smell of melted coolant, and then turning a corner and there it was, not it, them, a Vesari, not one of the ships, one of the things inside, a being, 7 feet tall, hunched, like someone twisted bone into art, skin like dull metal and fungus and something else I still don't have the vocabulary for. Its face, or what I think was its face, shimmered, like ink under water, and I froze. I remember thinking, this is it, that dull, quiet kind of terror where your body gives up before your brain does. I couldn't even scream. I just stood there, waiting to be deleted like the rest. But it didn't kill me. It studied me, its head tilted, it moved toward me, not fast, not aggressive. Just deliberate, curious, almost, and then it spoke. I didn't know it was language at first. It didn't sound like anything human. It sounded like wet rock breaking under pressure, but there was a pattern, a pulse, and then, EHLA, that's what it sounded like, EHL, soft, too soft for what it was, like a breath held in grief, and I knew, that was me, that was my name, not the one I was given at birth, the one before that, the one buried under skin and syllables and blood, the one I wasn't supposed to remember. And then it turned and left, just like that, left me standing in a hallway of corpses and coolant and frostbite, shaking and useless and still alive. And I remember, God, I remember this so clearly. I remember whispering, why, not out loud, just in my head, why me? Why didn't it kill me? Why did it say my name like it knew me? And the worst part? The absolute worst fucking part. Some part of me recognized it, too. You know what really gets me? What keeps me up even now, when there's no night left to measure anything by? They knew I didn't understand the language, not fully, not enough to say anything with nuance or weight or, hell, even a proper subject. I was still decoding patterns, still arguing with myself about phonetic anchors and root structures and whether sh even meant the same thing in every dialect thread. We hadn't even agreed on a proper designation for their verb structure. There was no consensus. It was all guesswork and instinct and listening to a thing that didn't want to be heard in the first place, but they told me to say something anyway. No, worse, they scripted it. Some comms officer, high rank, probably hadn't spoken a word of anything besides English and tactical bullshit in her entire life, sat me down in a sealed room and handed me a phrase. Speak this to them, she said, like it was that simple, like this was a movie, like I was a fucking magic wand with a brain. I looked at the transcript and immediately knew it was garbage, not just clumsy, dangerous. It had hard stops where there shouldn't be, it had tone markers in places that, in Vesari, might mean something closer to challenge or indictment than peace. It was trying to say, we come in unity, but the structure read more like, we assert order, which, in hindsight, might as well have been, submit. I tried to protest. I told them it didn't scan right, that if I got the syntax wrong, it might not be just noise, it might be offensive, might be heard like a threat, might open something we didn't want opened. She said, do it anyway, not even looking at me, just like that, like I was a mouthpiece, a meat-suit parrot. We need to show them we're willing to talk, I said, then let me talk, let me build a phrase that actually, no, and I remember that, no, flat, cold, final. They weren't asking me to translate. They were asking me to perform, so I did it. They patched me into the broadcast, told me to keep my voice steady, read the phrase, Eli, don't think, just read. I spoke it exactly as written, paused where they told me to pause, let the syllables drip like blood from my tongue, and then we waited. 3 minutes later, we lost contact with the Proxima station. They responded with fire, not words, not even an acknowledgement, just plasma, just another city, gone. And I said it. I said it, even if it wasn't mine, even if I didn't write it, even if my whole body screamed that something was wrong. I said it, with my mouth, with my voice, with whatever buried part of me they keep listening to when they let me live. I spoke a lie I didn't understand, and they understood it perfectly. They stopped letting me eat with the others, didn't say why, just started sending meal packs to my quarters, sealed, unmarked, no one to talk to. At first I thought maybe it was protocol, like, maybe there was some post-field trauma policy in place. Some mental wellness initiative I missed while translating death into syllables, but then the guards started walking me everywhere, not escorting, walking, like I was the radioactive one in front, one behind, no eye contact, guns not drawn, but not exactly, relaxed. The lab access code changed, my logs got misplaced, they told me it was a systems error. I told them I wasn't an idiot. I overheard them one night. I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near C-Deck after 2100. But I couldn't sleep, still can't, and I was pacing the halls because if I stayed in that little recycled box they called a sleeping quarter 1 second longer I was going to start peeling my skin off, so I walked, and the door to tactical command was cracked open just enough for sound. He's a risk, one of them said. I froze. He's been inside too long, that sphere did something to him, we need him. He's the only one who can parse their syntax. For now. I pressed closer, then someone, I think it was Colonel Dre, said it. We don't know how deep the contamination goes, not injury, not trauma, contamination, like I was a leak, a spill, something dangerous that needed to be mopped up before it seeped into the rest of the ship. Someone else, voice too soft to catch, muttered something about biological signals, that my scans were showing anomalous neurospike patterns, that the Vesari phrase recognition centers in my brain were showing activity even when I was asleep, sleep talking. To them, one of them said, and laughed, not like it was funny, more like they needed to laugh or they'd scream, and I remember standing there, breath caught, and thinking, they're going to kill me, or worse, they're going to study me, cut me open and see what part of me hums the same as the sphere, and the worst part. The part one can't scrub out no matter how many times I replay that night. I wasn't sure who I was more afraid of anymore, us or them. It kept showing up, that phrase, that sound, that. Whatever it was, first it was in the recordings, static-laced transmissions intercepted from wreckage, just fragments, always the same vocal pattern buried under distortion, like someone yelling underwater with a mouth full of glass. Then it was in the sphere, same shape, same rhythm. The first time I played it back, I thought it was just a loop glitch, like a corrupted file cycling a few syllables over and over, but no, it was intentional, and then it came from them. One of the surviving drones we pulled from the Europa wreck had a kill switch delay, 30 seconds of footage before it burned out. In those 30 seconds, a Vesari commander, if that's what you call something with 4 arms and what looked like bronze spines sticking out of its shoulders, leaned over a human corpse and said it, not to the corpse, to the camera, 3 syllables, sounded like, Varen ehla. I played that clip 117 times, slowed it down, mapped the tone lines, compared the syntax markers against every linguistic baseline I had, including the stuff from back when we still thought they were just interstellar anomalies. Varen ehla. It doesn't translate clean, nothing Vesari does. It's like their words aren't words, they're shaped feelings, they bend around context like water around stone, but the root idea. It was there, I felt it. You are the echo. I tried not to panic. I went back to old logs, cross-referenced past audio packets. It was everywhere. I just hadn't seen it before, not fully. It was laced into the beginning of each Vesari broadcast, hidden like a signature, not quite a name, more like a label, a fingerprint, mine. I brought it to command, showed them the phrase, the correlations, the timestamps, all of it. Thought maybe this was finally a breakthrough, maybe they'd stop looking at me like I was contagious and see I was useful. I was wrong, they just stared at me, and then they filed a new psych evaluation request. That's when I stopped sharing everything, and the more I sat with it, the worse it got, because, what the hell was I supposed to be echoing? What voice was I repeating? What memory did they think I carried? Why was I the one being echoed back to them? And why, God, why did part of me feel like I'd heard it before? Not recently, not since this war started, but, before, long before, like a dream I wasn't supposed to wake up from. I'm still hearing it. I don't think it ever stopped. I think my mom was one of them. God, that feels insane to write, like, full-on tinfoil hat on the porch insane, but I keep going back to the little things she did, the things I thought were just quirks, childhood stuff, grief stuff, trauma stuff, I don't know. And now I can't stop replaying them like they were clues, breadcrumbs. I didn't follow because I was too busy trying to be normal. She used to sit by the window at night with this old frequency scanner, just static, no signal, just hissing white noise like a dead channel, and she'd close her eyes like it was a song, like she could hear something inside it that I couldn't. I used to think maybe it helped her sleep, maybe it reminded her of my dad. He died before I was old enough to remember his voice. But now I don't think it was grief, now I think she was listening. Like actually listening. She called it, the hum, and she'd draw these shapes. I thought they were doodles. At the time I thought, okay, maybe this is what happens when you lose too much, you make your own rituals. But those doodles, I saw one of them again, on the inside of that Vesari ship, scorched into a metal plate, hidden like it was sacred, a spiral with a break through the center. I froze. I knew that line, I knew it. My mom used to carve it into the frost on our windows with her thumbnail, and the sounds, the way she used to record herself humming, whispering into cheap cassette tapes like she was leaving messages for someone, but never played them back. She never played them back. Why would she do that? Why would she do that unless it wasn't for her? Unless it was for me? Unless it was for them? I found one of her old tapes years later. I was 16 and she was gone. Car crash, instant, bloody, nothing left to bury. I remember I couldn't get the tape to play properly, it just sputtered and clicked and whined like the audio itself didn't want to be remembered. But I swear something in it said my name, not like a voice, not even words, just this, frequency bend. Like the syllables of my name were hidden in the distortion. God, listen to me, I sound like I need a padded room, but what if she wasn't crazy? What if I'm not? What if the reason I could hear the Vesari phrase, the one they kept repeating, the one I still don't fully understand, what if the reason I recognized it, was because she taught it to me? Before I had language, before I had words, just sounds, just rhythms in the walls and shadows on the floor, and if she was one of them, part of them, something between, then what the hell does that make me? I'm not sure which thought is worse, that she was one of them and never told me, or that I always knew and just buried it because it made things easier, because it made me human, because it made me safe, but I don't feel safe now, I don't feel human either, I don't even feel like her son anymore. I didn't mean to speak, I wasn't trying to do anything, I wasn't thinking, I wasn't strategizing or decoding or playing diplomat. I was screaming, just screaming, my throat was blood and panic. The comlink had gone dead, the last escape pod blinked off my radar, and I knew, I was next, so I screamed, not in English, not anything I recognized, just something I felt in the back of my ribs like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me, the kind of sound that bypasses your tongue and rips itself out of your lungs before your brain can stop it, and they stopped, the Vesari warship. 20 clicks wide, no windows, no insignia, just a floating monolith of soundless death, froze in space, not slowed, not adjusted trajectory, froze, mid-burn, mid-attack, all their systems just held, like someone hit pause, like they were waiting. I thought it was a glitch, a trick, a trap, I thought I was dead and my brain was just buffering the end, but then the light on their hull dimmed, the pulse guns retracted, and the whole thing slowly, tilted away, turned its body like it was listening, like it recognized me, like it knew my voice. I didn't tell anyone, not for a long time, not when I got back to base, not when they pulled me from the wreckage and ran tests and asked the same 5 questions over and over. I said the ship must have malfunctioned, maybe we got lucky, maybe they weren't targeting me, lie, all of it. I knew it wasn't luck, it was me, something in me, something that resonated when I screamed, something the Vesari heard and understood and obeyed like a command they'd forgotten they were waiting for. I've spent every day since trying to figure out what I said, or worse, what I was, because that kind of power, it doesn't feel like a gift, it feels like a trap, like I just triggered some ancient protocol buried in their genome or memory code or whatever the hell they run on, and if I can stop them with my voice, what else can I make them do? What have I already done without meaning to? They didn't spare me, they responded to me, and I don't know what's worse, that they heard me, or that part of me wanted them to. I kept thinking they were here to conquer us, that's what everyone said, right? In the early days, invasion protocol, extraterrestrial hostility, war for resources, all that recycled sci-fi bullshit they shoved into the briefings like it would make it easier, like it made sense, like we were worth conquering. But the deeper I went into their language, the closer I got to the root threads. Those core symbol pull sequence things they laced into every transmission, I started to realize, they weren't invading, they were correcting. That's the word that kept showing up, not destroy, not erase, not even purge, it was always closer to align, or restore, or God. The closest thing I could translate was retune, like we were broken strings, out of harmony, defective. I didn't want to believe it, I fought it. I tore through their syntax rules, double-checked the glyph frequencies, tried to force every symbol into a more violent frame just to make it line up with what we wanted to hear, that they were evil, monsters, murderers, but I couldn't twist it anymore. The words bent back every time, the verbs kept softening, the intention kept echoing, not conquest, correction, like they weren't wiping us out, they were undoing a mistake, us, we were the mistake. I remember one phrase. I still remember it because it was so simple and so damn horrifying. It repeated in 3 separate Vesari data clusters, always surrounding any mention of Earth. It was, fractured kin, out of rhythm, return required, fractured, kin, not enemies, kin. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you understand what that means? We weren't just random sentients to them, we were theirs, or at least, we were supposed to be, once, before something went wrong, before we split off and forgot the original code, before we lost the rhythm, before we invented our own words, before we became loud, and now they're here not to punish us, not really, they're just fixing the disharmony. I think we made them sick. I think we were like a corrupted line in an old memory archive, and they've been trying to clean it ever since, like we infected them, like our existence was noise, and I can't stop thinking, what if the silence they left behind wasn't cruelty? What if it was mercy? I wasn't supposed to have clearance, That's the part that fucks me up the most. Honestly, I wasn't meant to see it. I wasn't even supposed to be on that ship, but the field team lost 2 translators to a pressure breach and they didn't want to wait for replacements, so they pulled me out of sleep, threw a tablet in my hand, and dropped me into a goddamn tomb. That's what it felt like. The Vesari ship, cold, wrong angles, no lights, just hums and whispers in the walls, like the thing was still dreaming of war. They told me to go to a sealed node cluster, see if I could open it, just symbols, that's all they said. It's just a language archive. Lies, always fucking lies. There were no symbols, not at first. There were genomes, rows and rows and rows of code, woven like songs, nested like lullabies. I didn't even recognize the sequencing format. No base pairs, no proteins, just pulses, beats. It looked more like music than biology, and I would have walked right past it, would have assumed it was machine code, until I saw it. My name, my number, not written, not spelled out, encoded, Eli Renn 349-21E. Human identifier, Earthborn, translator division, clean genetic flags, no mutations, untouched. I couldn't breathe. I remember that, like my lungs just stopped negotiating with me. I thought I was hallucinating. I thought maybe one of the docs snuck in a prank. I thought anything except the truth. But it wasn't a prank, it was real, and I wasn't the only one. There were other sequences next to mine, some redacted, some marked obsolete, some tagged with Vesari glyphs I still haven't translated, but mine. Mine had a green border, a flare of sound when I touched the edge. The whole console shifted around me like it knew me, like I was a login key, a fucking passphrase. And that's when it hit me, that brutal, silent slap of oh, I'm not a translator, I'm the message. They didn't keep me alive because I was useful, they kept me alive because I was planned. I wasn't speaking their language, I was written in it, and maybe I always had been. I thought there would be noise, you know. Like the kind of fire you feel in your teeth. I'd braced for that. I'd seen the projections, the simulations, kinetic collapse, thermal shock, shield fragmentation, all those pretty little buzzwords for everything's about to go to hell. I thought it would be loud, apocalyptic, glorious, maybe, in that sick way we glamorize our own extinction. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't anything like that. It was just quiet. I was on a relay ship above Mars, assigned to monitor language drift and intercepted Vesari signals. That was the official story, real reason. Command didn't want me on Earth anymore, too close to the pulse events, they said, potential neuro-linguistic bleed risk, they said. Yeah, I was a contamination risk, but they didn't say it like that, they never do, so I watched it happen from a fucking screen. I watched Earth die on a goddamn silent loop. They breached the orbital shields in under 20 seconds, 20, no warning shots, no escalation, just a pulse. Not even a visible beam, just a null wave that erased the atmosphere like. It offended them, and the worst part, the absolute fucking worst part, was the stillness. No flash, no bang, no screaming, just a flicker, like someone turned off a light they didn't want anymore. I pressed my hands to the glass like that was gonna do anything, like I could somehow catch it, hold it back, but the world just shrank, blue turned gray, then black, then gone, and I screamed. I remember that. I remember choking on it, clawing at the walls like a goddamn animal. I kicked over a console, tore out my earpiece, threw it across the room. I think I broke my hand, I don't even know, but the Vesari, the ones on the comm logs, they didn't scream, they didn't celebrate, didn't chant, didn't even speak, just silence, like they were disappointed, or like they just finished cleaning something that never should have been there to begin with. Billions gone, whole oceans, forests, languages, laughs, pets, bad movies, inside jokes. Christmas lights, all of it, everything we were, blinked out without so much as a whisper. And still, even now, I catch myself staring at that last frame, Earth, mid-flicker, like it was trying to decide whether to stay or leave. I screamed, they didn't, and that's what I can't live with. And here's the part where I stop pretending I didn't know, where I stop hiding behind the I was just a translator bullshit, where I tell you the one thing I've never written down until now, not even for myself. I knew, not everything, not the exact hour, not the attack vector, not the obliteration math behind it all, but I knew something was coming. I saw it in the syntax, in the tonal patterns shifting under the Vesari drone transmissions like a riptide under calm water. I'd been tracking their signal modulations for weeks, watching them repeat this one phrase again and again in the deep band layers. Like an undercurrent nobody else noticed or maybe just didn't want to. It wasn't even a sentence, more like a warning embedded in a rhythm, a phrase that didn't translate cleanly. The closest I ever got was, "The silence will fall at root," and I sat there, in that dusty data core Advantis relay, staring at those words looping in and out of Vesari sublexicon alignment, over and over. The silence will fall at root, the silence will fall at root, root systems, home planets, origin codes. I knew what they meant. I decoded that phrase 6 hours before Earth went dark, and I didn't say anything. I didn't raise the flag, didn't send the report, didn't push the emergency channel. You want to know why? Because I thought, God, I hoped, maybe they were bluffing, maybe it was a threat, or a myth, or one of those ceremonial Vesari pre-war chants I was still cataloging. I mean, who the fuck declares annihilation in a whisper? In poetry? It didn't feel real, it felt like translation static, just another one of their paradox word games, and part of me, maybe the worst part, thought if I said it out loud, I would be the one responsible, like maybe translating it into human words would make it true. So I kept it quiet. I buried the file, turned off the alerts, sat in that grey-lit room with my headset unplugged and my guilt coiled so tight in my chest I could barely breathe. I convinced myself I was being cautious, that I needed more time, that if I was wrong, I'd set off panic for nothing, and if I was right, it was already too late anyway. I could have warned them, I didn't, and now the only thing louder than the silence I left behind is the one inside me. I didn't even flinch when they boarded. I was just sitting there in the wrecked-out shell of the forward bay, blood dried under my boots, helmet off, nothing left to transmit, just static choking the comms and the stink of ozone and carbon in my nose. And I remember thinking, good, let them come, let them finish it, let them pull me apart atom by atom and scatter whatever's left. But they didn't kill me, they didn't even touch me, they just stood there, 3 of them, tall and wrong in that way Vesari always are, too many joints, eyes that blink sideways and pulse instead of close, armor that hums when they breathe. But it was the 4th one who broke me, the small one, the one in the robes, the one with the mask shaped like an open mouth, carved from bone that didn't belong to any creature I ever saw in a Terran archive. He knelt, I swear to whatever's left out there, he knelt, and then he reached out, not to strike, not to inject, not to bind, and instead he placed something at my feet, a shard, smooth, humming. I didn't know it then, but it was a memory stone, Vesari tech that holds sound and thought together like amber around flies. He placed it down like a priest offering incense, and then he looked at me. He looked at me like I was sacred, not in a, you are precious, way. God no, it was worse. It was like I was some ancient text he'd spent his whole life chasing across the stars, like he was afraid to breathe too hard around me, like if he blinked, I'd vanish back into myth. I remember locking eyes with him, or whatever his version of eyes were, and feeling smaller than I ever have in my life, not weak, small, like I didn't own myself anymore, like I never had, like I'd just been walking through someone else's prophecy in the wrong body all along. I wasn't a hostage, I was a relic, a fragment, a puzzle piece they'd finally found, and for a second, just a second, I wanted to believe it meant something, that maybe surviving had a purpose, that maybe being seen that way was a gift, not a curse. But that passed, because reverence still puts you in a cage, even if it's gold-plated and humming with memory, even if they worship the cage instead of mocking it. They didn't chain me, but I never left. They didn't even flinch when I spoke. I thought my voice might matter, I thought maybe the syntax, the tones, the half-understood prayers I stitched together in the dark, maybe one of them meant something, meant peace, meant stop. I tried, God, I tried to sound like them, but when I touched the console on that Vesari ship, everything changed. It lit up like it had been waiting for me, not just responding, welcoming. The surface pulsed, not in defense, not in rejection, it bloomed, light, soft and slow, spiraling out like I'd just completed a circuit that had been open for centuries, like the ship sighed, like it recognized me, not my voice, not my words, me, my palm, my cells, my goddamn blood. I jerked back so fast I hit the floor. I remember the way my hand burned afterward, not from heat, not from pain, like the kind of burn you feel when someone says your name and means it, like your skin remembers a touch that hasn't happened yet. It kept glowing even after I backed away, not red, not hostile, blue, soft, familiar. Familiar in a way that made me want to throw up because I didn't know why it was familiar, and then the lights began to shift across the walls, patterns, glyphs, not random, a response, a pattern of return. I wasn't accessing the system, I was the system. That's the moment I stopped believing I was human in any way that counted. I'm not saying I'm Vesari either, okay? I don't know what I am, something in between, something leftover, something they buried and I, triggered. I didn't ask for this, I didn't know, I swear to whatever's left of anything holy, I didn't know, but they didn't spare me because I was good at talking, they spared me because I didn't need to speak, because my blood already did. I didn't even know what I was saying, not really. I mean, I'd been piecing the syntax together like a madman, looping every Vesari chant, every shard of intercepted glyph code, every echo from their wrecked priestships, and something started forming, a pattern, not a command, not exactly, more like a mirror. I said it in my sleep once, woke up sweating, didn't even remember dreaming, just the phrase on my tongue like it had always been there, like it came from me, like it was mine. The wound remembers you. I whispered it first, into nothing, into static, into the void outside the derelict cruiser where I was squatting in a flight suit that didn't fit right anymore, and nothing happened. But then, later, when the ships came back, a whole wing of Vesari destroyers curling toward what was left of Europa Station, people screaming through broken comms, airlocks tearing open, hull alarms punching through my skull. I don't know what made me do it, some panic spasm in the brain, some desperate part of me still pretending I could help. I rerouted a signal burst through the old Vesari beacon coil and spoke the phrase into it, didn't scream, didn't whisper, just said it, one breath, like I was repeating a memory that wasn't mine. And they stopped, not slowed, stopped. In perfect symmetry, like dancers freezing in a photograph, no warning, no threat, just a pause so total the universe felt quieter, like even the stars were listening. I remember staring at the feed and thinking the footage had frozen. It didn't, the ships just hovered, one turned, just a few degrees, just enough for the hull glyphs to reflect that weird blue hue, the color I keep dreaming about. And then, this part one can't explain, they bowed, not with motion, not like heads, but the ships tilted downward, slightly, deliberately, like they were showing deference, not to the station, not to the humans still screaming over the comms, to me. I don't know what the phrase means, I still don't, I'm not even sure it was a phrase, it felt more like a confession, and they understood it, felt it, and then they left. They didn't fire, they didn't reply, they just vanished back into slipspace like the war hadn't happened at all, like they were waiting for me to remember that sentence, like I had finally said something worth listening to. I haven't said it since, I'm afraid of what else it might stop, or start. I used to think it was just timing, wrong place, wrong role, wrong decade to be born into a galaxy that was already bleeding under the surface, like maybe the universe just picked me at random and shoved me into the breach because nobody else was standing close enough, that it was all a mistake. But, what if it wasn't? What if I was never picked? What if I was built? I keep thinking about this appointment my mom had when she was 6 months pregnant with me. I was digging through her old medical logs, back when I still had access to EarthNet archives before it all burned, and there's a redacted note in her record, experimental gene interface, something, linguistic patterning infusion trial, that's all it says, no details, no timestamp, just that she signed a consent form and never talked about it again, and she wasn't the kind of person to forget things. She archived her memories, taped conversations, cataloged dreams, literally wrote full journals in symbols that didn't belong to any living language. She said they came to her in music, in static, in the white noise of stars. I thought it was mental illness. I mean, I was a kid, I thought she was just weird, beautifully weird, like the kind of weird you write poetry about. But now I think maybe, no, I know, she wasn't hearing things, she was remembering them, downloading them, and maybe the reason she couldn't say anything out loud wasn't because she didn't know how, it was because I was supposed to be the one who said it. She used to rest her hand on her stomach and hum this sound, this low, pulsing tone that didn't match any melody I've ever found in human records, not lullabies, not languages, not anything, but when I was on that Vesari relic ship, standing in front of the interface core, the hum it made when I touched it. It was the same frequency, exactly. I don't even know what that means, or maybe I do and I just can't say it out loud because if I say it, then it's real, and if it's real then I was never a person, not fully, not in the way everyone else was. I wasn't chosen, I was engineered, preloaded with syntax I wasn't supposed to understand until I had to. Maybe that's why the sphere reacted to me. Why the Vesari paused when I spoke, why the phrase, "you are the echo," keeps showing up in there. Memory banks, because I'm not the translator, I'm the goddamn signal, and I don't think I have a real name anymore. They didn't threaten me, not with guns, not with fire, not with that awful vibration their ships give off before they erase a city, nothing like that. They didn't have to, they just stood there, or hovered, I guess, whatever the Vesari version of standing is, when they're half shadow, half signal. I still can't look directly at them without something in my brain itching, like a bad frequency humming through bone, but I understood them. Not just the words, the intention, and that's worse somehow. It's worse when something looks at you and sees not a threat, not a mistake, not even a victim, just a decision. They said I could remain. That was the word they used, remain, not live, not survive, remain, or I could choose extinction, the final silence, let the war end cleanly, no anomalies, no echoes, no skipped notes in their song of memory, a single final harmony. I was the only wrong chord left, and they asked me, like it was some gesture of mercy, like I was lucky to be given a choice when they'd given no one else even a second to scream. I wanted to scream. I should have screamed. I should have told them to go to hell and die in the dark and choke on every atom of every person they ever erased. But what the hell would have been the point? There was no one left to hear me. Earth was gone, the colonies were cinders, even the few voices still cracking through the outer relays weren't begging for help anymore, they were just sending loops, old songs, static, names no one would answer. So I didn't fight, I didn't run, I asked them what remain meant. They showed me. It wasn't words, they just unfolded, like memory unfurling in reverse. I saw it in pulses, like thoughts someone else had bled into me, shapes shifting, my own form dissolving, not dying, not fully, just changing, losing edges, becoming pattern, no pain, no joy, just inevitability. They told me I wouldn't forget, that was the promise, that I would still be me, just less human, less alone. I'd be part of something bigger, something older, a story that didn't need survival to be eternal, and God help me. I said yes, not because I believed them, but because there was no one left to tell me not to. They say memory is survival, that if something is remembered, it isn't really gone. I used to believe that, I think we all did, especially toward the end. When we were broadcasting voice logs and nursery rhymes and random street noises into the void, just in case something out there would catch it and go, ah, that was human. But I've been listening, I've scanned every frequency I can think of, public bands, encrypted channels, old earth hurts, the weird ones the Vesari use when they don't think we're listening. I've stretched myself thin across the dead lattice of what used to be a galactic net and there's just nothing, nothing real, nothing alive. There are no voices left, not human ones, and I don't know when that hit me. Maybe when I stopped saying we, maybe when I stopped correcting myself, maybe when I started dreaming in Vesari pulse phrases instead of words I used to say to my mom, static instead of lullabies, silence instead of names. The worst part isn't the extinction, it's the stillness that followed. Like the universe took a breath after crushing us and decided not to exhale, like it's just waiting for the sound to finish fading. One survivor doesn't mean a species, it means a memory, and I think even that's starting to crack. Sometimes I forget the word for light, sometimes I forget the word for mine, sometimes I forget I had a sister, her name was, shit, it was, doesn't matter, she's not here to hear it anyway. I said yes, I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I didn't make some dramatic speech about legacy or love or sacrifice like the vids used to show when soldiers blew themselves up for the cause. I just nodded, or whatever my body was still doing that counted as nodding. My hands didn't feel like mine anymore. My voice, when I tried to speak, came out like crushed glass over a wet wire. They didn't need the words, I didn't need the words, the decision had already soaked into me by then, like oil and fabric. They didn't thank me, Of course they didn't. There's no word in Vesari for thank you, not the way we mean it. Closest translation is something like function acknowledged, not gratitude. Not grace, just recognition of outcome. I wasn't choosing life, not really, I was choosing usefulness, choosing to keep moving because the alternative was to finally stop, to dissolve into the screaming quiet and let that be it, let them win completely. If I became a bridge, at least part of us crossed, even if it wasn't the part we'd be proud of. I remember thinking about my mother in that moment. How she used to draw spirals into the frost on our window and hum that broken static like it was a song only she could hear. I thought about how I used to worry she was losing herself, but maybe she was ahead of me, maybe she'd already crossed, maybe she knew, or maybe I'm just telling myself that so I don't feel like I abandoned everyone who didn't get the chance to choose. I said yes, and they took me, and I don't think I've stopped falling since. I don't think in English anymore. It's not something I noticed all at once. It crept up on me, like mold on the edges of old bread. I was running diagnostic logs on the translation matrix last week. Wait, no, not week, that's not even a relevant unit out here, and I caught myself mumbling under my breath, not words, just pulses, Vesari tonal strings, harmonic loops, thought sounds, not human, not anymore. It didn't scare me right away, that's the part that scares me now, that it didn't scare me, that it felt normal. I caught myself trying to remember the word for warm, couldn't land it, all I could think of was the Vesari context echo for memory heat light skin, one word, a sphere of meaning, no syllables, no sharp letters, no edges. It's easier, I guess. Their language was always cleaner, more efficient. Every word is a decision, no fluff, no metaphor unless it serves the structure, just truth, or at least, intention. That's what gets me. I used to love language because it could lie, because it bent to emotion. Now I speak in a tongue that has no room for pretending, and I miss pretending. Sometimes I'll sit here and try to write something in English, just a sentence, anything. I'll start with, I remember when, and then I'll stare, and it won't come, not because I don't remember, because the memories don't translate, they're shaped wrong now. My brain keeps trying to thread them into syntax they don't fit, like I'm forcing a melody through a flute made of stone. I tried to remember the word for, belong. It took me 6 hours. I still don't know if I got it right. All I could think was, I existed inside the motion of them. What the hell is that? What the hell am I? I write this in words I no longer feel. I miss the sound of wind, not storms, not rain, just wind, you know. The stupid little whistle it made between buildings, the way it nudged leaves like it had secrets to tell, the way it moved through your hair and made you feel noticed, like something in the world touched you without needing anything back. There's no wind here, nothing brushes your skin unless it's alive and watching. The air in this place, if you can even call it air, sits still like it's holding its breath, like it's waiting for me to do something awful again. There's no hum of insects, no rustle of trees, no warmth that doesn't come from a tube or a pulse coil, just mechanical exhale, always the same. I used to complain about it, back then, wind in my eyes, wind in my comms, wind wrecking my hair before a briefing, stupid, shallow crap. I'd kill for it now. I'd give up every last syllable I've memorized in their perfect, polished, prison of a language just to hear it again, just once, just to close my eyes and feel something invisible touch me. That's what it is, I think. It's the invisible things I miss, the things that didn't need to be seen to be real, wind, laughter in another room, the feeling of someone walking past you in a crowd and not meaning anything by it. Do you get what I mean? The background hum of being human. Out here everything is intentional. Waited, observed, nothing just happens. Every movement has consequence, every silence means something. It's exhausting. It's not silence, it's surveillance. And I keep thinking about this moment from when I was a kid, maybe 6, 7. I was in a field, just outside the dome sector. It was illegal to be there, technically, which made it better. I was lying on my back with a plastic viewer pretending to find constellations, and the wind was cold, not freezing, not cruel, just honest, and I remember whispering to myself, this is what forever feels like. God, I was so wrong. No one teaches you how to mourn a planet. They showed me their war, not with words, not even with images, not really, more like sensations, buried impressions, pressed into my head like bruises that didn't hurt until hours later. They don't share stories the way we do, no beginning middle end, just moments, emotion first, detail second. It's like drowning in someone else's trauma without knowing what language the water speaks. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing, feeling, remembering. I don't even know the right word for it. I saw shapes, ships, stars, planets with strange architecture, then faces like ours, or almost like ours, that uncanny near, the way dreams sometimes get your mom's face just wrong enough to wake you up sweating. They weren't Vesari, not quite, and not fully human either, hybrids, us, proto-us. I don't know, something in between, and they weren't losing, we were the ones breaking treaties, we were the ones sabotaging peace. There was a Vesari elder, I think, her memory was woven through the rest, a kind of anchor. She felt disappointment, not fear, not rage, disappointment, like watching your child become something violent and realizing too late that you raised them wrong. She remembered betrayal, over and over, whispered oaths, broken symbols, stolen code, something we did, not me. But human us, ancient us. I think we tried to control something we weren't meant to touch, maybe them, maybe the technology, maybe both. We didn't lose the first war, we just stopped being invited back, and I know it doesn't make the genocide okay, it doesn't justify anything, but God, it changes things, doesn't it? Because they didn't come back to conquer, they came back to correct. I used to tell myself it wasn't personal, that they saw us as a threat, as noise, as something worth eliminating but not hating, but now I'm not so sure. There was something personal in the way that elder grieved us, like we weren't enemies, we were regrets, we weren't victims, we were the original sin. I was never human enough to save them, God. I tried to be, I tried so fucking hard. I wore the uniform even when it didn't fit, saluted people I didn't respect, said, sir, to faces that only ever looked through me. I memorized the mission, recited the anthem, kept my damn head down. I laughed at their jokes even when they made them about me, about my mom, about soft jeans, and spacer blood, and how translator boys probably got alien dreams. I let them say it. I needed to be useful, I wanted to be one of them, but I wasn't. And they knew it, long before I did. I remember one briefing, right after Titan, I was still shaking, still trying to scrub blood out of the grooves of my datapad, and some lieutenant I didn't know leaned over like we were old friends and whispered, "You're lucky they let you live," probably thought you were one of theirs. I laughed, because what else was I supposed to do? But something in me paused, froze, like my own biology heard it and flinched. And the worst part is, I think he was right. I think that's exactly why they didn't burn me down with the rest of the colony, not because I begged, not because I was brave, but because they looked at me and saw something else, something not entirely human. They didn't spare me out of mercy, they spared me because I was recognizable. And I kept telling myself, no, that can't be it. I speak their language, that's it, that's the link, words, not blood, not design, not inheritance. I'm just a translator, just a guy in the wrong place at the worst time. But the Vesari don't care about words the way we do, they don't worship syntax, they don't believe in diplomacy. What they care about, what they trust, is memory, resonance, echoes, and I guess I was loud in a way they understood, so yeah, I wasn't human enough to save Earth, and I wasn't Vesari enough to stop the fire either. They didn't trust me because I was human, the Vesari trusted me because I wasn't. They gave me a new name, I didn't ask for one, I didn't want one, I didn't even understand what was happening at first, just a room, if you can call it that, a chamber made of light and memory and this awful low frequency that made my spine itch. I couldn't see them clearly, just outlines, presences, heat pressed into the air like a heartbeat. They made me stand in the center, no chains, no force, just that sound, that hum that pulled the breath right out of me, and then it came, like pressure behind my eyes, not a voice, a knowing, like when someone says your name from across a crowd and you feel it before you hear it. They said echo, no, not said, not exactly, they called it through me, like a tuning fork, and something in me, something I didn't know how to shape, answered. I don't know how long I stood there, I don't remember what I did. Maybe I bowed, maybe I collapsed. All I know is that when I walked out, no one called me Eli anymore, not even me. Eli Renn died the day Earth did, and honestly, I don't miss him. He was scared, pathetic, he thought books and clean ethics and just doing your job would save anyone. He flinched when people barked orders, he bit his tongue until it bled and called it duty, he watched the world end and hesitated. I hated him. But sometimes I remember the sound of his laugh. I remember static in his mother's headphones and the way he used to believe that language could fix things. I remember what it felt like to think you were small, and that was okay, that you didn't need to be chosen, or special, or anything but kind. And now I carry the name of something I don't understand, a title, a role, a curse. Maybe all three. They called me Echo because I carried what was left, because I speak in dead tongues and remember things I never lived, because I'm not a person anymore, I'm a signal, and the worst part. I don't even know who sent it, or why. I should stop here, I feel like I'm splitting open just typing this, but I can't, not yet, there's still more, there's always more. I asked them for one last broadcast, I don't even know why, no one's out there, there's no fleet, no survivors, no bunkered colonies waiting for a ping from home, there's nothing left with ears, not human ones anyway, but I asked, I begged, actually. I dropped to my knees like a fucking child, like that would matter. To beings that don't even have knees, I said, please, just let me speak, just once, and they let me. They took me to some kind of, I don't even know what to call it, a node? A pulse chamber. The walls were made of memory, actual memory, you could see it, rippling in waves like heat off asphalt, earth, flickering in snapshots, oceans, cities, faces, mine, my mother's, the librarian who used to tuck hard candy into my jacket collar when I came to translate old radio songs for her, gone, gone, gone. I stood in front of this thing, this alien console that had no buttons, no wires, no interface, just intention. I could feel it waiting, not judging, just open, and I couldn't speak, not at first. I think I stood there for 10 full minutes with my mouth open and nothing coming out, my body shaking like it remembered what crying was supposed to feel like, even if I couldn't do it anymore. My throat burned, my teeth hurt, my hands wouldn't unclench. I thought maybe I'd scream, or lie, or blame someone else, or confess everything. I didn't do any of that. I just said, if there's anyone left, if you can hear this, remember us, not me, not what happened, not the war, not the mistake, just us. And then I paused, like an idiot, like I was waiting for someone to answer, like I was still hoping. I wanted to say goodbye, I did, I thought I would. But it didn't come out. Instead I said, don't forget, and that was it. That's all I had. 2 words, like that would make up for any of it, like that would carry the weight of a burned-out sky and a hollowed planet and a voice that wasn't even mine anymore. I didn't say goodbye, I said, don't forget, and maybe that's worse, to whoever finds this. I don't even know if that makes sense. Finds what? This? Me? The frequency? The confession? The fucking disaster I've poured out like blood on static? I don't even know if this is being recorded the way I think it is. Vesari tech doesn't store the way we do, it remembers, it becomes, so maybe this isn't a message, maybe I'm just etching my breakdown into the living mind of some ancient species that doesn't even have a word for regret. Maybe no one will ever hear this, maybe that's better, but if you do, if you're something that hears, this is me, this is Eli Renn. I mean, it was, I keep saying that, like names still matter, like I still matter. You probably think I'm trying to explain what happened, or justify it, or unburden myself so I can, I don't know, die with less weight. No, this isn't for peace, or redemption, or answers. I'm not going to wrap it up with some poetic bullshit about purpose or hope or forgiveness. This is all I have left to give. This noise, this mess, this, God, what even is this? A scream? A record? A prayer? I've lied, I've changed my story, I've doubted every memory I ever had, I've looked at the sky and missed it even when I was still standing beneath it. I told myself I was a translator. That I didn't matter, that I was just a voice, not the reason, not the spark, not the match. But I am, that's the worst part, that's the thing I keep trying not to write, not to say. I'm not just a survivor, I'm not just guilty, I'm the bridge and the burn, and I don't know how to carry that, I don't know what language can. I just keep typing, speaking, recording, because I'm scared that if I stop, if I sit still long enough, I'll finally hear how quiet it is, and I'm not ready for that. Yet, I didn't feel it when it happened, or maybe I did and just didn't know that's what it was. You expect something dramatic, some light, some ripping, some thunderclap through your chest that says, this is where you end, this is where you become, but it was nothing like that. It was soft, God, it was so soft. They don't push, the Vesari don't force you into the memory sea, they invite you, and I said yes, or I didn't. I don't even know if it matters, they knew I would, maybe I always was. I think I was already halfway inside it before I realized what was happening. My thoughts stopped echoing back, my name didn't feel like it belonged to just me anymore. I said Eli and it didn't mean the same thing. It meant the boy who used to hum into broken radios, the one who used to press his hand to the static and call it language. It meant the voice I left behind. The child returned. Not to a mother, not to a womb, not to anything human, to them, and it wasn't a homecoming, not. Really, it wasn't warm, it wasn't cold either, it just was, like being folded into a sound so ancient you forget you ever had ears. I don't know if I'm thinking this or remembering it, I don't know if those are different anymore. The memory sea doesn't show you images, it shows meaning, it feels you, it turns you inside out and then back again until you can't remember where the pain ended and a translation began. I saw a face. My face, but not mine, a Vesari shape, with my eyes, not literal. Not even metaphor, just truth, and I don't know how to say this part right, I don't, I'm trying. I saw every version of myself that could have been, every lie I told, every word I spoke that opened a door I couldn't close, every silence I filled with good intentions and every message that got someone killed. I saw the moment my mother looked at me with something like pity, like she knew she was raising a detonator and couldn't stop the countdown, and I let go of Earth, of English. Of my name, I'm not floating, I'm remembering, I don't know what else to give you. I've given you my language, my guilt, my memories scraped raw, I've spilled every ruined thing I was taught to hide, every word I never should have spoken, every silence that killed. I've tried to be honest, even when it hurt worse than lying. I told you what happened, told you who I was, what they called me, what I became, and still, none of it feels like enough. I'm not human anymore, not in any way that matters. I don't dream the way we used to, I don't flinch at the quiet, I don't wait for anyone to reply. But if you hear this, if there's even one of you out there, one voice, one pulse, one breath left in the dark, don't remember me, just remember us, because we were messy, and violent, and beautiful, and broken, and loud, and so damn alive. And even if they rewrite every word we ever said, even if the stars forget our names, if you're human, don't forget what we were. I didn't.